I'll just invite Abhi. Okay, so now we have Abhishek from Sutherland. Abhishek is a global WFM leader from Sutherland, is located in India. He's been playing a very key role in Sutherland globally, bringing in a lot of initiatives. Abhi has got a lot of insights to share as far as the lessons learned from COVID. In fact, he has his organization stories. Also, very insightful pointers he's going to share about new WFM strategy and way forward. So thank you so much, Abhi, having you with us today. Really appreciate your presence.
Pleasure being here, Dr. Shiva. And if you could just pass me the presenter rights, please. Thank you. And so good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and from whichever geographies that you've joined. Appreciate you being here. And I really appreciate this opportunity to be a part of this forum and also to be able to address fellow colleagues from the WFM fraternity. A big shout out before I start and to Dr. Shiva for bringing us all together and doing what he is doing, because this brings the entire fraternity together, doesn't it? And just imagine the kind of collective WFM strength and WFM manners that we have in these kind of forums. It's just staggering. So with that said, I'll come back to the topic on hand, and this is the new WFM strategy and way forward, and that's going to be a two-part manner. And before I start, if I just were to take a straw poll to check how the year 2020 was, and if I ask you to rate it, and just in the 5-star manner, with 1 star being the poorest and the 5 stars being the best, I'm pretty sure your results would be something like what's on the screen, right? So 2020 has been that kind of a year, and you imagine why it would be that kind of a year. And is it because of the Australian bushfires that we had, or maybe the deforestation in Amazon, or maybe losing some of the superstars, Kobe Bryant included, in 2020, or what was it? So obviously it was all of that and the mother of all calamities, right? The biggest catastrophic event after the World War, and definitely on this side of the millennium, right? Obviously it is the COVID-19 pandemic that I'm talking about, which brought everything down with it, right? So be it life expectancies, or be it small and medium enterprises, be it other business houses, or be it the economy, the sheer confidence of people, and COVID-19 actually entered the social fabric as well, right? It decided how is it that we meet and greet people as well. So it was that hard hitting. But like all calamities, COVID-19 also gave us a lot of lessons to learn. It taught us a whole new dimension, and which is why we have a lot of rejuggling, rejigging of the practices and forums and processes that were hitherto practiced and followed, right? Which is why I say that every cloud has a silver lining, and every problem can be turned into an opportunity if looked at through the right lens. And why is that? It's obviously because there's a lot of lessons that are to be learned, and COVID-19 did provide us a lot of lessons. So what has been your biggest lesson that you've learned, right? So across the multiple amounts of lessons that each one of us has had, I think let's put out the best one. And for me, the best one, or the best lesson that COVID taught us, was if necessity is the mother of invention, adversity surely is the father of reinvention. Right? So none of us could have imagined this time last year of doing these forums in the manner in which we're doing them, or not traveling anywhere for over a year, sitting in our homes, kids and college and school kids just attending their educational academics through their homes and not actually going to any of those institutions. So it has been a complete reinvention, right? So that's, for me, the biggest lesson that COVID has taught. But apart from that, I was able to, because of my role and my profile of work in Sutherland, I was able to assess this entire situation and this event in very close quarters from a WFM angle. And what are the lessons that it taught me? So it taught me 5 absolutely key lessons. And here they are, right? The first one, and I think that was also something that was emphasized by Nadia, my fellow speaker, in her preamble, where she spoke about over communication, right? And for me, I think the first part again was communication, and communication is an absolute key asset that we can have. Why is it? It is because we're communicating to the clients on an everyday basis. We communicated with them to understand what is their strategy, how is it changing, how are they adapting to the changing demands of the customers, and only when we communicate with the clients are we able to understand what are the strategies that they're going to employ, and then we change our strategies accordingly, right? So the communication with the clients is absolutely key. Secondly, what are the stakeholders within the business doing? What are the vertical leaders? What are the account leaders? What are the geographical leaders? How are they adapting to the situation? It is an absolute must, or we had to communicate with each of them. So the WFM team communicating that with the service delivery team to understand how is it that they are adapting to changing demands and changing scenarios. That said, we were also communicating with different departments, and for instance the IT department, how are they enabling work from home so as to understand staffing levels, for that matter the logistics and transportation department to understand how are they transporting all of the equipment to people so that they can start working from home. Is it even happening, right? So that's why communication was very key with different departments. The risk and security department, are they giving us the approvals to be able to work from home? And that's how we understood what is the level of work from home or brick and mortar that we established through this entire period. Finally, communicating with our people. My fellow speaker, Roger, spoke about having empathy and speaking to people. There's a lot of communication that we had with our teams, no matter if there was delivery teams, for that matter security teams, or for that matter even WFM teams. We had to give them assurance. We had to tell them how are we tapping the entire situation, how are we dealing with it, and how is it that we're coping with it, and what is it that they can expect from us and the senior management and the leadership, right? So speaking to people, giving them assurance, telling them what a fine job they're doing was absolutely important. And then it is communication actually that replaced physical face-offs or meeting people and having our usual fun in the office. Obviously that couldn't be done. So now it is the remote communication or all forms of communication that we're adopting to make sure that we maintain status quo. The second learning was business agility, right? We had to move with the speed of changing customer and client needs. The situation was different for every single client and every single customer, right? The only thing that COVID did was, it leveled the entire playing field. Everyone was in it together, which means everybody was impacted. Every customer that was impacted reacted differently. So we had to understand if it's a travel industry or the retail industry or the technology industry, or the healthcare industry, we are talking to which clients from which sectors. Everybody had a different take on the situation. Everybody had a different impact. So, we initially thought that the travel industry is going to see a big aftermath of it. Yes, they did, because the revenues were really going down, but people were still contacting us. People wanted to cancel their trips. People wanted to cancel their airline tickets. People wanted to cancel their bookings with different aggregators. So those calls were coming up, which means we had to keep the people, which means cost was increasing, but there was no fresh revenue that was getting booked. So those clients actually changed the manner in which they did their business. So the business models was changing. I was changing at the speed of thought because the scenarios that were unfolding were pretty grim and were pretty quick. Lockdowns were different at different times in different countries. So a global player or a global client or a client that has offices in almost all the countries or across the globe was getting impacted in a very different manner across the place, right? So it was very important to understand how is it that they are reacting to every single scenario, which meant that, only by interacting with them and moving at the speed of changing client and customer needs was the WFM team able to gauge what sort of impact it is going to have on service levels or on transactions, and how is it that we need to staff according to that. The third thing, and I think you must have heard, immense connotations of this. We heard Nadia speaking about it as well in terms of automation and how we need to just get everything onto the cloud, if not done so already. But that part is now digital enablement. right? Digital enablement is an absolute must. Okay, we're talking about how is it that we need to equip and empower? How is it that WFM needs to go to the next level, if not done already? We're talking about the AI systems and how can they do predictive modeling. We're talking about WFM tools and systems that are moving from on-prem to cloud computing. And we're also talking about WFM as a service from the cloud. Right, so digital enablement is an absolute must. We thought we had a good grip on our people and their performances. Yes, we absolutely did when they were in the brick and mortar scenario, but when they moved to work from homes and away from the organization's network and environment, we essentially were struggling at the start to understand how productive our people are. Yes, we had them on we had them logged in onto all the tools, but we were not able to track true productivity. So then how is it that we what to do? So that was a big lessons learned, and we immediately deployed certain tools which actually captured every single tool that the person was logging in through the day. And then we sort of clustered the entire productive tools of the people, and then understood what is it that they're spending their time on to be able to calculate the overall productivity. So enabling work from home and tracking through productivity, making sure all our tools are absolutely state of the art, and we're moving in with the industry in terms of digitizing our solutions was a big lesson, and that's something that has really held us and has served us very well during this entire period. The next learning that we had was in terms of the decision making. We are a centralized unit. We have central leadership, and it works absolutely brilliantly for us. And in fact, one of the differentiators of the WFM team within Sutherland. But at times during this entire event, we thought that we need to move away from this model, and we actually did make a departure from that particular model, because we understood that every single country, every single account, every single vertical has a different reaction or has a different kind of an impact to this entire event, right? So, when we needed to take some decisions in, let's say, in the LATAM region, the rest of the EMEA region or APAC region had possibly shut shop for the day. But the LATAM region was up and running, and it really needed to take some key decisions and on the ground decisions. So we sort of moved away from the centralized decision-making process to a decentralized decision-making process, where we empowered certain key people across every geography that we operate out of, and every function that we provide, and every service that we provide. And we equip these people, and we put our complete trust in them to take the right decisions at the right times, so that we maximize service delivery, and we maximize the overall outcomes and outputs from our end, and as well as the service delivery centers. That sort of enabled us to move at top speed and be absolutely flexible. The next and the last learning I thought we had, and which is worth penning down, is preparing for a black swan event, and possibly having frameworks so as to be able to provide a guideline on how to emerge victorious from these kind of black swan events. And let's not take anything away from the situation. It was the mother of all black swan events, right? So COVID-19 really hit every single business unit, and it hit every single industry. Nobody had a clue as to how or what is it that we need to do, or how is it that we need to cope up. So we were preparing for it. But what we did is we quickly put together a framework guideline and a framework document of how is it that we need to do forecasting in the new world, or how is it that we need to do resource planning in the new world. How is it that we can look at scheduling in a different manner? RTA, RTA was always on premises, on location, on site, sitting with the service delivery. Service delivery has moved at home. How do we need to change and modify that? So we started putting in frameworks to be able to cope up with that, a guideline document that told every single RTA or every single scheduler or a resource planner on how is it that she needs to do her piece, how is it that she needs to modify her working style, and then help put this out. So there were multiple BCP situations that were invoked inside of COVID-19 as well. So we were preparing for that Black Swans event, and in that we also had to deal with the typhoons in Philippines or the never-ending monsoons of India. We had to look at the infrastructure problems that we had in EMEA. and so on and so forth, right? So we actually prepared frameworks to understand how is it that we can cope up with these kind of black swan events, or for that matter, any kind of BCP situations, right? So, we were talking about people working from home, reverse migrations, people going back to their hometowns, the kind of power outages that they experience over there, or maybe the broadband fluctuations, connectivity issues. We had to look at all of that and say, okay, if we don't get this person logged in, or if we don't have that level of staffing and our staffing levels are going to be poor, how is it that we're going to be interacting? How is it that we're going to be reacting? What is it that we need to do, such as delivery is not impacted and we can still put on the best possible delivery that we can actually for this event? So those are the kind of frameworks that we devised, and that define some of the processes and services that we were going to offer in this kind of an event, which has made us richer, which has made us stronger, such that, tomorrow, if there was any kind of a similar situation or an event, we are best prepared to tackle it and put our best foot forward. Those were the kind of lessons learned for us. The other piece that I'm going to talk about is the kind of business impact that was felt across all the sectors. And why is that important? It is because, we are servicing different clients from these exact sectors. And it's very important for us to understand what's the kind of impact that every sector has had, so as to be able to assess the kind of damage that has been caused to those sectors and to those particular companies within that sector. How is it that they're going to be reacting, and basis their reactions or the measures that they take, that's going to define the kind of relations that we're going to have with them, or that's going to define the kind of customer traffic that they're going to see for the WFM teams to be able to modulate, right? So we look at an overall scenario. So we've got each and every sector here on the left hand side, starting with arts, entertainment, and recreation, going to accommodation, food services, education services, and so on and so forth. And then we have on the right hand side, and expressed in this graph, is the kind of recovery, a full recovery to pre-COVID standards that we would imagine. And I've borrowed this from the McKinsey group of companies and their study. And it suggests that, the top three that are going to feel the biggest impact are the arts, entertainment, and recreation, accommodation, and educational services, with a full recovery in about 3 to 5 years' time. And it goes on where we have then slightly muted and slightly diluted kind of an impact. Two kinds of impact. One is the first scenario is a virus contained scenario, while the other one is if not a muted kind of a recovery. So if you see this, and the graph is quite telling, it's anywhere between now and the next 5 years that the recovery could happen back to the pre-COVID stages. Obviously, there are certain sectors that are recovering much quicker. It's the information services, healthcare, and the technological services, which are going to be recovering much quicker, much faster. But anywhere, if you look at it, and if you want to take a key takeaway from this slide, it is the fact that most sectors are poised to recover only over a 2 to 3 year horizon, which means they're going to be having stricter business models, and they're going to have a very deep and accelerated move towards digitization if they haven't already moved. That is going to define how customers are going to contact them. That is going to define how the entire traffic is going to come. It's also going to decide which are the work streams that are going to be the most popular ones, and that will help us assess how is it that we need to do the staffing, how is it that we need to do the overall governance, and how is it that we can monitor the overall situation for that particular client from these sectors that we're talking about. Now, staying on with the business impact, let's look at some of the financial impacts as well that customers have felt. The graph and the different bubbles in that suggest what is the kind of impact that companies have had, sectors have had, and what is the kind of financial risks that they've had. So we look at different sectors, one where the ones which are less affected with less financial risk, while there are others which are less affected but have a very high financial risk, and then the others where the impact has been lower, but then the financial risk has been high. And then the final ones where the impact and the financial risk is really high as well. So if we stay with the previous example of the arts and entertainment and recreation, let's pick up the first one. And if you were to search that over here, that's in bubble C. And if you were to look at it, yes, it's the one which is more affected and has a higher financial risk. And you would imagine that because their recovery, it stated, was only a full recovery by 2025, and that's possibly the reason why it's obviously a very high financial risk and the kind of impact that it's had as well. So this can sort of help us understand and gauge the kind of financial impacts that different sectors and companies from different sectors are going to have, and this obviously is going to dictate some of the measures that they take, and which is why it's important for us to gauge how is it that they're going to be lining up their recovery, and then be able to preempt some of the measures that they will be taking and the kind of impact that we will have as a WFM fraternity in being able to service them or the clients within that, right? So a key takeaway from this slide is that the revenue recovery will absolutely take precedence to negate any kind of financial impact that the companies have seen and the sectors have seen. They're going to be putting a lot of emphasis on tighter P&Ls, right? So it's not going to be very easy to get them to sponsor some initiatives or because they're going to be looking at it from the prism of recovery, financial recovery, and they will also be looking at it from the prism of growth, right? So growth will be one of the biggest agendas they would have, because they would want to get back to the right side of the balance sheet, to get back into the black again from red, and they would be doing and taking several measures. They're adopting several kind of measures to be able to do so. That will again dictate the kind of business model and the strategy that each of these sectors and each of the companies within these sectors are going to be taking. So far we've looked at the business impact and the financial impact on different sectors and different companies. Let's just look at what COVID has done to the most important cog of the wheel, which is the people. And if you were to look at this graphic over here, it denotes and it plots what's the kind of levels of stress that people are feeling, and it goes from being excluded from the entire workforce or from the entire impact to being pressured to work for more, or the feeling of being absolutely exhausted or burned out, right? And the survey that was done was across single men, single women, married men and married women, and also migrant workers, both male and female, right? Obviously, the quotient of married women, where they had to handle and balance the work life, their entire responsibilities in the entire work life mix, along with handling their stress levels at work, being asked to log in and take a higher number of transactions, it's been felt immensely. So, which is why, if you were to look at this graphic, it's extremely telling, and the fact that more than 40 to 60% of the entire workforce is feeling pressure to work more, or is having the feeling of being really, really exhausted. So, work from home has been a brilliant measure to cope up with the entire COVID impact. But what it has done, it has made stress levels go up, and quite rapidly at that. And which is why it's extremely important for employers to provide a very good work-life balance to employees, else they will really risk burnouts. And who else, apart from, if not the WFM team and the WFM fraternity, who has the entire responsibility of scheduling the entire work schedules of people to do this than anybody else, right? So, which is why we, as a WFM fraternity, are extremely well poised to be able to correct this particular graphic over here. Okay, so moving on, let's just look at what is it that the companies want. Yeah, so we looked at the kind of impacts that they've had, both financially and from a business market standing point of view. We've also looked at the kind of impact that we've had from a people perspective. What is it that the companies would want? What is it that the people would want? And how is it that 2021 will define some of the strategies and define some of the kind of measures that they take? Let's look at some of these. Adaptability, resilience is something that the companies would definitely want to build. Adaptability in the way of tackling with such kind of events if it happens again, or the overall impact that they've already realized. How do we want to cope up with it? How do we become very flexible and adaptable? That's something that they'd want to do. They want to build their resilience by virtue of BCP programming, or by virtue of training their people, or by virtue of just accepting the new normal and quickly adapting to it and building their resilience. I spoke about accelerated digitization. So be it whichever field of work, whichever unit of business that you talk about, it will see a metamorphosis, and the change will be towards digitization rather than the other way around, right? They would be looking at getting deep insights from their entire tools and the entire tool network that they have, and they would be wanting to get some kind of efficiencies from that as well, right? In terms of looking at some of the measures that they would offer their customers, explosion of omni-channel is absolutely on the cards. It is the customer that will choose how she would want to contact a particular company, right? Is it going to be voice? Is it going to be back office? Is it going to be an email? Or is it going to be the most explosive one, chat? How is it that we want to do it? Or it could be a mix of all of this as well. Who knows? So it's going to be an explosion of omni-channel, and the companies would want to track that extremely diligently so as to have the best customer experience served out. What does it mean for the employees? We're looking at employees willing and wanting to take something which is called vacations, right? So it's a new acronym that has come in, and it's come in through in the new normal as well. Vacations is where you work or while on vacation. So you're blending your vacations and work together because that's the need of the hour. And that's something that you're actively looking, and employees are actively looking to go to, and employers are looking at bringing that up or giving them. 9-to-5 work culture, as you know, is going to be a passe. It's going to be something like a 3-2-2, which means you work out of the office for 3 days, work twice from a remote location, and 2 days off, which brings about the entire hybrid working culture. And because you're serving a totally new workforce, which is a gig workforce, right? So it's a hybrid working model. You either spend time in the office or you work from home or from a remote location. It's work from anywhere at the moment. So you'd see a lot of reverse migrations, people going back to their hometowns as well. And that's particularly defined some of the working cultures that we've seen in this pandemic. So all of that will be looking quite ominous. And companies and employees alike will be looking at some of these aspects to be able to plan strongly and to be able to future-proof their businesses. So what are some of the key themes emerging, and how is it that the new strategy, or what is the way forward, and how is it that companies are going to be lining themselves up in this new normal? What is it that they really want? Let's just look at this here, and focus on what is it that the companies are really wanting to have now. We spoke about digital enablement, absolutely required. And I'd be really surprised if any company is not taking that as their strategy, or not already embarked on this journey, or already reached a very mature stage of digital enablement in their workplaces. People supply chains, where you have a group of people identified. You would want to understand how is it that they are serving the customers, how is it that we can have a cross-pollinated pool of people that we can tap into, how is it that we can best have people ready to serve customers on different demands and different time zones, etc. And we want to build, or companies would want to build, a very strong pool of supply chain. Make no mistake, revenues and P&Ls are going to get tighter. It's going to be very prudent spend. So it's not that the companies wouldn't be willing to invest. Obviously, they'll be investing a lot in different digital technologies, but it's going to be a very carefully managed P&L, and it's going to be a very tighter revenue model that people would be getting into, companies would be getting into. A complete obsession with the clients that they serve to get the net promoter score as high as possible. And that's going to be one of the biggest objectives that they would want. Here is where they would want to partner with the customers or their clients and understand how is it that they would want to go ahead in this new normal. How is it that they would want to strategize? How is it that they would want to bring their entire different strategies or different measures in this new world? And that would help them partner with their client and bring about their objectives and their strategies to fruition. tapping the entire customer journey. I spoke about multi-channel. I spoke about omni-channels. People are going to be contacting companies in different work streams, different ways and means. Companies will be really keen to tap the entire customer journey and understand how is it that they can serve their customers better and serve a really strong customer experience as such. That customer experience will be strong only if the people that are serving them are really happy, right? So companies would want to have happy people serving happy customers, and that's the only way to get really high and strong net promoter scores for themselves, right? So companies will be looking really, really keenly to bring about a wave of happy people index as such. And of course, a tighter P&L and a tighter revenue model will mean a greater emphasis on generating efficiencies. Yeah, how is it that you would want to define the entire spend? How is it that we can look at cost optimization? How can we look at cost avoidance? How can we look at garnering better savings? Those are the kind of efficiencies that the companies will be hoping to tap into. Right. So a 7-point agenda, according to me, that the companies will be embarking upon, and this is the kind of the future state business requirement as we can imagine. How is it that WFM can play a role in all of this? How is it that we can have this fraternity making an absolute positive dent into the entire requirement and the future state requirement for businesses? Let's look at this now. So when we are talking about digital enablement, right? So it's from the previous objectives and previous future state businesses that have listed out. Let's look at how WFM is going to be an enabler for all companies to get into that. With digital enablement, we had Nadia speaking about automation. She was talking about moving everything to the cloud. We already have something like that. We've seen many a company actually host their entire WFM as a service into their cloud prem. So we moved from the on-prem environment into the cloud hosted services in many of all, right? So WFM has already marched onto something like that. We're looking at different off-the-shelf AI-based products. Now, AI is defining almost every aspect of the business, and even in tools, the AI tools is talking about forecasting in a multi-channel, in an omni-channel kind of an environment. It's going into predictive forecasting. We're talking about intraday forecasting. So it is evolved, and it has evolved quite rapidly as well. And you would see, AI-based forecasting tools actually coming across in a very strong manner and being employed by several employers, if not done already. And which is why this will be one of the defining moments of WFM enabling digitization. One of the key aspects is also about, and one of the key aspects about forecasting is also about stable historic information and historic data. With COVID-19, the entire customer behavior and the entire arrival patterns and the entire contact patterns have changed, right? So how reliable is this information? How reliable is the historic data? For all you know, that historic data could just be obsolete, and what we've garnered or what we've gained in the last 8-9 months could become the new normal and could become the new manner in which the customer contacts us. In that, it is going to be really, really important to have AI-based technology define some of those forecasting techniques and be able to bring out some of those models. Apart from that, we're already looking at mobile-friendly WFM tools. We're looking at smart schedules, and we're looking at productization. We're looking at personalization and mobility of these services. What do I mean by that? Productization is and personalization means when companies, WFM companies, and have already introduced products where scheduling can be done on the fly. People can be able to personalize their entire feed. Associates would be able to look at their schedules on the fly because there is mobility that has been assigned to that, and which is why they would be able to not only just check their schedules but also request for time offs, shift swaps, etc. All of that can be done via a mobile and via a tablet or via a handheld device, and that's where it's already moving into, and which brings up the overall digital enablement. We're talking about reporting and analysis as well from a WFM angle, And the entire piece is something which is completely digitized now. So we've got many WFM tools that are offering the entire data sets under one umbrella. And that is empowered completely by the entire digitization of MI and of the overall data sets that we have. In terms of people supply chains, it's absolutely imperative and absolutely a prerogative of the resource planning tool and of the resource planning process, resource planning framework as such, that will dictate this. Imagine the scenario where customer behavior is changing. There is absolute complexity that is coming into the mix. We've got omni-channel, we've got multi-channel, we've got call complexities, we've got a different contact mix coming in, we've got first-time resolutions, and then we're looking at the other end of the prism and the other end of the paradigm, where we're looking at the availability of staff. People, either they're working from home or they're working from brick and mortar services, the kind of impacts that work from home is having, broadband connectivity, uninterrupted supply of power, reverse migrations that I talked about, people working from their hometowns, all of that dictating the entire staffing models. And what you have, if you pull all of that together, is a very complex mode from which we need an absolute disruption of resource planning practice to be able to nail that down and to be able to absolutely get the right people at the right time and just be sure that our staffing levels are absolutely maximized at all times. We're going to require deep insight of the customer behavior. Which is the kind of channel that the customer is choosing. Is it going to be voice? Is it going to be by emails? Is it going to be chats? That sort of dictates the demand, and that demand will dictate the kind of workforce that is required to be able to service those kind of interactions and iterations and the volume that is coming through, right? So which is why resource planning is going to go through a disruption, if not already, and becomes an absolute key service offering from WFM. I spoke about tighter revenues and P&Ls that the companies are going to embark into, and there is no better than the WFM team to partner with the finance teams and to be able to predict the entire revenue and P&L that companies are going to generate. Now, why do I say that? It's obviously because
sorry to interrupt, Shiva here. We're exceeding the time. If you could just wrap up as soon as possible.
Sure, Shiva. I will do that. I'll very quickly do that, Shiva. Thanks for the reminder. I was just conscious of that. I was just mentioning about how WFM is poised or in a position to be able to predict revenue because of the entire billing models that we have, and also the workforce that is required and the capacity that is required to be able to house these people as well. So we are able to understand the kind of revenue that the companies can generate, and then again, what is the kind of contribution and cost factors that are available to that, right? So which is why we're in a very unique position to be able to partner with finance and be able to predict the revenue and P&Ls as well. I'll fly through the other pieces, but some of the one of the important aspects would be just to understand how is it that WFM can actually have happy people as well. Because I mentioned about automating the entire scheduling process and also looking at getting people only when they're needed, so as to be able to provide them flex schedules. That gives them a complete work-life balance, and obviously has a very happy index and then happy index happy people index would obviously nurture a very happy client as well, and which will really shoot up some of the NPS scores. Efficiencies would be done through some of the automations that I spoke about and that WFM is driving, which brings me to the final slide, which is about what are the kind of skills required to be able to harness this entire period by WFM professionals. Talking about developing an all-round WFM skill set, right? So, right, from forecasting, resource planning, scheduling, RT, and analytics. WFM professionals today should, I'm not saying that they should be absolute masters of all of this, but they should be able to know most of these skills and be able and have that mindset to be able to explore some of the responsibilities across each of these. Being tech savvy is table stakes. It's a given, it's a must. So you cannot be living under a rock and saying, I'm not going to be learning and I am not really tech savvy. You have to become tech savvy, and possessing a can-do mindset will be able to will enable you to be able to deal with technology and also all sorts of business challenges that are thrown to you. Not to be a frog in the well, understand what's happening in the market, participating in such kind of events will be a game changer, will help you understand what's going on in the market, how is WFM progressing as a fraternity, and then equipping yourself on all the new learnings that the fraternity is throwing out. I spoke about how important is communication. So we have to be articulate and we have to be able to put our point across, our analysis across, and our steer for decision making that we provide. All of that can be done by really good communication skills. And finally, I see analyzers and problem solvers are always in demand. They're always in vogue, and which is why it's very, very handy to have an analytical and problem solving skills. So with that, I conclude my presentation. I apologize, Dr. Shiva, if I've just gone overboard, but thank you for the opportunity again. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhi. It's really fantastic. I would say the fantabulous presentation, and with a lot of insights. I see that there's huge learning. Through your presentation, it has been a fantastic learning for me, of course, and I'm sure that it's for everyone. Thank you so much.